There is a saying in Westeros that a Lannister always pays his debts. These words are not the official motto of the house, yet they have become more famous than the ancient words carved above the gates of Casterly Rock. The true words of House Lannister are, "Hear me roar," a declaration of power and pride befitting the golden lion on their crimson banner. But it is the unofficial motto that has spread across the Seven Kingdoms, carried on the lips of merchants, lords, and small folk alike. The phrase carries a double meaning that captures the essence of Lannister identity. It speaks of honor and reliability in matters of commerce and alliance, the promise that generosity will be repaid with generosity. Yet it also carries a darker promise, a warning that those who wrong a Lannister will find their sins remembered and avenged. In taverns from Old Town to White Harbor, men know that to accept gold from a Lannister is to accept both the blessing and the burden that comes with it. The phrase has outlived countless lords and will echo long after the current generation has turned to dust. The golden lion that adorns the Lannister sigil has prowled through thousands of years of Westerosi history. The banner displays a golden lion rampant on a field of crimson, colors that speak of wealth and blood, of triumph and sacrifice. Lions once roamed the hills of the Westerlands in great prides, their roars echoing through valleys where gold veins glittered in the stone. The Lannisters took these magnificent beasts as their symbol, claiming kinship with the king of predators. Over generations, the wild lions were hunted to extinction, yet the Lannister lion grew only more powerful, stamped onto coins and shields, woven into tapestries that hang in castles across the realm. Some say the last lions of the West were kept in the depths beneath Casterly Rock, though none have seen such creatures in living memory. The sigil remains a promise and a warning, a golden predator that never forgets and never forgives, watching from crimson fields as centuries turn and empires rise and fall. Long before the Lannisters claimed their ancestral seat, another house ruled the great rock that rises above the sunset sea. The Casterlys were the first lords of the fortress that would bear their name forever, a house whose origins stretch back into the Age of Heroes, when the boundary between history and legend blurs like morning mist. They discovered the vast deposits of gold that lay within the rock, veins of precious metal that seemed to have no end, and they carved their home into the living stone itself. Casterly Rock became the greatest fortress in all of Westeros, a mountain hollowed into halls and chambers, with galleries that overlook the sea and dungeons that descend into darkness where the gold still sleeps. The Casterlys ruled for generations uncounted, growing rich beyond measure, until a trickster came with nothing but his wits. Their name survives only in the rock they once called home, a reminder that even the mightiest houses can vanish into history, leaving nothing but stone and story behind. The figure of Lann the Clever stands at the very beginning of Lannister history, though he belongs more to legend than to recorded truth. The tales say he lived during the Age of Heroes, that mythic time when giants still walked and the children of the forest had not yet retreated into the shadows. Lann possessed no great army, no dragon, no magic sword. What he had was cunning, a mind so sharp that it cut deeper than any blade. The stories of how he took Casterly Rock from the Casterlys vary with each telling, changing shape like clouds across a summer sky. Some speak of trickery, some of seduction, some of darker arts. What remains constant is that Lann the Clever entered the rock with nothing and emerged as its master, founding a dynasty that would endure for thousands of years. His golden hair, the tales say, was stolen from the sun itself, a gift or a theft that he passed down to all his descendants. One version of Lan's legend tells that he crept into Casterly Rock through a secret passage, a crack in the stone that only he could find. Once inside, he moved through the darkness like a ghost, playing tricks upon the Casterlys that drove them to madness. He whispered in the night, making lords believe their wives were unfaithful and ladies believe their husbands plotted murder. He set brother against brother, mother against son, until the great house tore itself apart from within. In this telling, Lan never raised a weapon, never shed a drop of blood. He simply watched as the Casterlys destroyed themselves, then stepped forward to claim what remained. The servants, it is said, hardly noticed the change, for Lan had already been walking among them for years, learning every secret, every weakness. He understood that the greatest fortresses fall not to siege engines, but to the doubts that gnaw at human hearts in the dark of night. Another tale speaks of Lan filling the rock with vermin, lions and rats and creatures that crawled through every chamber until the Casterlys fled in terror. In this version, Lan was a tamer of beasts, a man who could speak to animals as easily as he spoke to men. He gathered the lions of the western hills and led them into the fortress through passages known only to him. The roaring of the beasts echoed through galleries and great halls, and wherever the Casterlys ran, golden eyes watched from the shadows. One by one, the ancient lords abandoned their ancestral home, leaving behind their gold and their glory. When the last Casterly had fled, Lan called off his lions and took his seat upon a throne that had never known his blood. Some say the lions stayed, that their descendants prowl the deepest tunnels still, guardians set there by the founder himself to protect his line until the ending of the world. The most romantic of the legends claims that Lan the Clever won Casterly Rock through love rather than trickery. In this telling, he seduced the daughters of Lord Casterly, visiting each in turn and fathering children upon them in secret. When the Lord discovered what had happened, he found that his grandsons, the heirs to his ancient name, bore golden hair instead of the dark Casterly locks. Rather than see his bloodline end in shame, the old lord acknowledged the children as his heirs, and through them, Lan's blood came to rule the rock. This version makes Lan less a trickster than a lover, less a thief than a father. Yet even here, there is cunning at play, a patience that spans years and a plan that sees beyond the immediate moment. Whatever the truth, Lan's seed took root in Casterly Rock, and his descendants would rule for millennia to come. The maesters who attempt to separate history from legend suggest that the Age of Heroes occurred some 6,000 to 8,000 years before the conquest of Aegon Targaryen. If Lan the Clever truly lived, he walked the earth when the first men were still learning to forge bronze, when the children of the forest still held their groves sacred, when winter came not as a season, but as an age of ice and darkness. In such a time, anything might have been possible. The songs say that heroes could do what ordinary men could not, that the boundaries between possible and impossible had not yet been drawn. Lan stands among these figures of myth, alongside Bran the Builder and Garth Greenhand and the Grey King, men who shaped the very foundations of the world that would come after. Whether he was truly clever or simply fortunate, whether he stole a castle or was gifted one, his legacy is undeniable. The Lannisters trace their blood back to him, and that blood has never ceased to rule. Whatever the truth of his origins, Lan the Clever is remembered as the founder of a dynasty that would become the richest in all of Westeros. The gold that the Casterlys had discovered became the gold of the Lannisters, and they multiplied it through trade and mining until their wealth was spoken of in lands beyond the sea. Lann himself is said to have lived to an extreme old age, some legends claiming he saw his 100th year and more. He fathered many children, both legitimate and otherwise, and from them sprang the great house and all its cadet branches. The golden hair that he supposedly stole from the sun appeared in generation after generation, marking his descendants as surely as any sigil. When at last he died, his sons raised a tomb within Casterly Rock itself, a chamber of gold and precious stones where the founder sleeps still, dreaming perhaps of tricks yet unplayed. His shadow stretches long across history, touching every Lannister who has ever lived. The descendants of Lann the Clever established themselves as kings of the Rock, rulers of the Westerlands in an age before the Iron Throne existed, before dragons had ever been seen in Westeros. For thousands of years, the Lannister kings held their domain against all challengers, their gold buying armies and alliances while their fortress remained impregnable. They warred with the Gardener kings of the Reach, with the Ironborn who came raiding from their islands, with lesser houses who thought to claim the Western gold for themselves. Through it all, the Golden Lion endured. The succession passed from father to son, from brother to brother, occasionally through more tangled lines when war or sickness took the direct heirs. Each king added something to the legacy, expanding the mines, strengthening the walls, building the fleets that guarded the western coasts. The Rock that Lann had claimed with nothing but cleverness became the seat of one of the most powerful kingdoms in Westeros. King Lorien I Lannister earned the name the Lion through conquests that expanded his domain to its greatest extent. He was among the early kings of the Rock, though exactly when he reigned has been lost to the passage of time. Under his rule, the Lannister armies swept across the Westerlands, bringing lesser lords to heel and establishing borders that would hold for generations. He is remembered in the songs as a warrior of great prowess, a man who led from the front of every battle, his golden armor blazing in the sun. Yet Lorien was also a builder, raising towers and holdfasts throughout his kingdom, connecting them with roads that his merchants and soldiers could travel with ease. The wealth of the Rock flowed outward during his reign, enriching the land and tying the lords more closely to Lannister rule. When he died, they say the sun itself dimmed in mourning, and the lions of the hills roared for 3 days and 3 nights. The chronicles record many Lannister kings, though the details of their reigns have faded like ink on ancient parchment. King Tormund established laws that would govern the Westerlands for centuries. King Lorien III expanded the gold mines deeper than any before him, following veins that seemed to lead to the very heart of the earth. King Gerald the Golden built a fleet that made the Lannisters a power upon the Sunset Sea, challenging the Ironborn for dominance of the western waters. Some kings were warriors, others scholars, still others schemers who preferred to win with gold rather than steel. Each added their chapter to the long story of the house, their deeds recorded in the books that Maesters kept in the library of Casterly Rock. The names blur together across the millennia, but the constant remains: the lion roaring from the crimson banner, the gold flowing from the endless mines, the Rock standing eternal against sea and storm. Among the most celebrated of the ancient Lannister kings was Gerald III, called Gerald the Great, who reigned during a golden age of expansion and prosperity. Under his rule, the boundaries of the Westerlands pushed outward. absorbing territories that had long resisted Lannister dominion. He was a warrior who never lost a battle, a diplomat who forged alliances that lasted generations, a patron of artists and builders who transformed Lannisport into one of the great cities of Westeros. The songs of his era speak of tournaments and feasts, of lords traveling from across the continent to witness the splendor of his court. Gold covered the walls of Casterly Rock's great hall during his reign, and the tables groaned with food brought from every corner of the known world. When Gerald the Great at last passed from the world, his kingdom was larger, richer, and more powerful than any who had come before. His successors would struggle to maintain what he had built. The wealth of House Lannister flowed not only from the gold mines, but from the great city that grew at the base of Casterly Rock. Lannisport became one of the largest and richest cities in all of Westeros, a hub of trade where merchants from distant lands came to exchange goods and make their fortunes. Ships crowded the harbor, their holds full of spices and silks, and the sound of 100 languages filled the streets. The Lannisters of Lannisport, a cadet branch of the main house, administered the city under the authority of their cousins in the rock above. Guilds of goldsmiths and armorers produced works of legendary quality, their skills passed down through generations of craftsmen. The city walls rose high and strong, rebuilt and expanded by king after king until they could withstand any army. In times of peace, Lannisport hummed with commerce and culture. In times of war, it served as the arsenal and recruiting ground for Lannister armies. For thousands of years, the Lannister kings held their independence, bowing to no one beyond their own borders. They treated with the other great kings of Westeros as equals, sometimes as allies, sometimes as enemies. Wars were fought and treaties signed, princesses exchanged and hostages taken. The pattern of Westeros politics played out generation after generation, the same dance of power with different dancers. The gardeners of the Reach remained the most persistent rivals, their fertile lands pressing against the western hills, their armies vast and their ambition unending. The Ironborn came raiding when their kings grew strong, burned Lannisport more than once, and retreated only when the gold bought enough ships and soldiers to drive them back to their islands. Through it all, the Lannisters endured. Their rock could not be taken, their gold could not be exhausted, their name could not be forgotten. They seemed as permanent as the hills that held their wealth. The age of independent kingdoms ended when dragons appeared in the skies above Westeros. Aegon Targaryen came with his sisters and their 3 dragons, and one by one, the ancient kingdoms fell before fire and blood. The last king of the Rock was Loren Lannister, who faced a choice that no previous Lannister had ever confronted. He could bend the knee and surrender his crown, or he could fight and risk the destruction of everything his ancestors had built. Loren chose to fight, joining his army with that of Myrnine Gardener, the king of the Reach. Together, they assembled the largest host that Westeros had seen, an army that outnumbered the Targaryen forces many times over. They met Aegon on the plains, confident that courage and numbers would prevail against 3 dragon riders. What followed would be remembered as the Field of Fire. The Field of Fire became the only battle in the Wars of Conquest where all 3 Targaryen dragons took to the air at once. Balerion, Meraxes, and Vhagar descended upon the combined Lannister and Gardener army, and the world changed forever. 4,000 men burned in the flames that day, their screams lost in the roar of dragonfire. King Myrn Gardener died with his heirs, ending a dynasty that had ruled the Reach for thousands of years. King Loren Lannister, however, survived. He escaped the burning field and returned to Casterly Rock, where he might have continued to resist. Instead, he chose to bend the knee. He traveled to the Targaryen camp, knelt before Aegon, and surrendered his crown. In exchange, he was confirmed as Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West, the first Lannister to hold such titles rather than kingship. The Golden Crown was melted down, but the Golden Lion continued to rule. The transition from kings to lords changed everything and nothing for House Lannister. They no longer wore crowns or styled themselves royalty, yet they remained the masters of Casterly Rock and all the gold that lay within it. The Targaryens, wise enough to recognize the value of wealthy allies, treated the Lannisters with respect and often sought their counsel. Lannister gold helped build the new capital of King's Landing, helped pay for the roads and castles that bound the Seven Kingdoms together. In return, Lannisters served on the small council, married into noble houses across the realm, and maintained their position as one of the great powers of Westeros. The Dragon Kings came and went, their dynasty troubled by madness and civil war, but the Lions of the West endured as they always had. Some lords were great, others forgettable, but the name Lannister never lost its weight. When men spoke of wealth and power, they spoke of the lords beneath the rock. The generations that followed the conquest produced lords of varying quality, as is the nature of any great house. Some expanded the family's influence through clever marriages and shrewd investments. Others squandered opportunities or led disastrous military campaigns. The Lannisters fought in the Dance of the Dragons, that terrible civil war between Targaryen factions, choosing the side of the Greens and suffering for it when the Blacks emerged victorious. They rebuilt, as they always did, their gold smoothing over the wounds of war. They fought against the Blackfire pretenders, standing loyal to the Iron Throne when others wavered. Through plague and famine, through long summers and longer winters, the house continued. The rock remained impregnable, the mines continued to produce, and the Lion Banner flew over the Westerlands as it had for thousands of years. The blood of Lan the Clever still ran golden. Among the lords who came after the conquest, few would have as lasting an impact on the family's history as Tytos Lannister, though not in ways that brought honor to his name. Tytos was born into wealth and power, heir to a legacy that stretched back to the Age of Heroes. Yet he possessed none of the steel that had characterized his ancestors. He was a gentleman, soft of heart and weak of will, more inclined to laugh and forgive than to enforce his authority. In another house, in another time, such qualities might have been seen as virtues. In the Westerlands, where lords had always ruled through strength and the threat of strength, they proved disastrous. Tytos wanted to be loved, and in pursuing love, he lost the respect that his position demanded. The lords who had bent the knee to his father began to straighten their backs, sensing that the lion had lost his roar. The vassals of House Lannister grew bold during the years of Tytos's rule. They borrowed gold from Casterly Rock and never repaid it, knowing that the Lord of the West would forgive the debt rather than demand payment. They ignored summons to court, settled their own disputes without reference to their overlord, and openly mocked the man they called the Laughing Lion. Tytos earned this name because he laughed too easily and too often, treating slights as jokes and insults as misunderstandings. His bannermen learned that they could do as they pleased without consequence. the careful web of obligation and fear that had held the Westerlands together for generations began to fray. Lesser houses that had always known their place began to dream of greater things. Among these were House Rain of Castamere and House Tarbeck of Tarbeck Hall, whose lords saw opportunity in Lannister weakness. The Rains were among the proudest and most powerful of the Lannister vassals, their seat at Castamere second only to Casterly Rock itself in wealth and strength. Their mines produced silver in abundance, and their lord, Roger Rain, known as the Red Lion for his crimson hair, commanded respect throughout the Westerlands. He had served with distinction in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, returning home a hero while Tytos remained at the Rock, and he chafed under the rule of a lord he considered his inferior. The Tarbecks, led by the ambitious Lady Ellen, who had once hoped to marry into the main Lannister line, shared the Rain's discontent. Together, these two houses formed an alliance that threatened to overturn the established order. They ceased paying their debts, fortified their castles, and began to treat with other lords who might join their cause. Rebellion brewed like a storm on the western hills. Tytos Lannister's response to this growing threat was characteristic of his reign. He negotiated, he pleaded, he offered more generous terms for debts that would never be paid. Each concession only emboldened his enemies further. The other lords of the Westerlands watched and waited, measuring which side would prove stronger. Had Tytos died and been succeeded by another weak lord, House Lannister might have fallen from its ancient prominence. But Tytos had a son, a young man who had watched his father's humiliation with cold fury, who had sworn in the silence of his heart that he would never be laughed at, never be mocked, never be weak. This son was Tywin, and he would reshape the Westerlands with fire and blood, teaching a lesson that would echo through generations. The Laughing Lion had sired a very different beast. Tywin Lannister was not yet 20 years old when he took command of the Lannister forces and marched against the rebellious lords. His father still lived, still nominally ruled, but everyone understood that power had passed to the son. Tywin gave the Rains and Tarbecks one chance to surrender, to return to their proper allegiance and beg forgiveness. They refused, confident that the boy could be handled as easily as his father. It was the last mistake they would ever make. Tywin moved with a speed and ferocity that stunned the Westerlands. He besieged Tarbeck Hall first, and when the castle fell, he showed no mercy. Every member of House Tarbeck was put to the sword. Their line ended in a single night of violence. The message was clear, but Tywin was not finished. He turned his army toward Castamere, where the Rains had retreated into the mines beneath their castle. The destruction of House Rain would become legend, a story told in whispers throughout the Seven Kingdoms. When Tywin's forces arrived at Castamere, they found the Rains had sealed themselves within the mines, trusting in their underground stronghold to protect them. Tywin did not attempt to storm the mines or starve the defenders out. Instead, he ordered his men to dam the streams that fed the local rivers, diverting the water into the mine entrances. Then he sealed every exit with stone and earth, trapping the Rains in darkness beneath the ground. The water rose slowly, filling chamber after chamber, and none who sheltered within ever emerged. Not Lord Roger, not his brother, not their families or their servants or their men-at-arms. House Rain ceased to exist, drowned in the darkness beneath their own castle. Castamere fell silent, and that silence became the most feared sound in the Westerlands. A singer composed a song about the fate of the Rains, a haunting melody that would become famous throughout Westeros. The Reigns of Castamere tells of a lord who thought himself equal to the lion, who challenged Lannister authority and paid the ultimate price. The song requires no explicit threats, no detailed description of violence. It simply asks who now remembers House Rain, who recalls their proud words and their red lion banner. The answer is the silence that follows, the understanding that they are gone utterly, as if they had never been. After the rebellion, Tywin never needed to make open threats against his vassals. He needed only to have a musician play the song, and lords who had considered defiance would remember what happened to those who crossed him. The rains weep over the halls of Castamere, and none remain to hear them. That was Tywin's gift to the realm, a lesson written in water and blood. The young lord who had crushed the rebellion returned to Casterly Rock transformed in the eyes of all who knew him. Tytos still lived, still laughed, still forgave debts that should have been collected, but his son had become the true power in the Westerlands. Lords who would have ignored a summons from the father came running when the son called. Debts that had been forgotten were suddenly remembered and paid with interest. The respect that Tytos had squandered, Tywin rebuilt through fear, and fear proved far more reliable than love. He was not cruel for cruelty's sake, not a monster who delighted in suffering. He was simply ruthless in the pursuit of his family's honor, willing to do whatever was necessary to ensure that the Lannister name would never again be a subject for mockery. The lion had found his roar. When Tytos Lannister finally died, there were few who mourned the passing of the Laughing Lion. His son had already been ruling in all but name for years. But there was one final humiliation that Tywin would not allow to stand. In his last years, Tytos had taken a mistress, a woman of low birth who had gained such influence over the aging lord that she had begun to wear the jewels of Tywin's mother. She had even been seen giving orders to servants and knights, as if she were the lady of Casterly Rock. On the day of Tytos's funeral, before the body was even cold, Tywin had the woman seized. She was stripped of her finery and paraded through Lannisport, made to confess that she had been nothing more than a common woman who had traded her body for gold. The message was brutally clear. The age of weakness was over. The age of Tywin had begun. Aerys Targaryen, second of his name, ascended to the Iron Throne as a young and promising king, and he chose Tywin Lannister to serve as his hand. It was a partnership that would define an era, the dragon and the lion working together to govern the Seven Kingdoms. Tywin brought his ruthless efficiency to King's Landing, reforming the treasury, strengthening the laws, crushing dissent with the same cold precision he had shown at Castamere. The realm prospered under his management, even as the king who sat the throne began to slide into darkness. For nearly 20 years, Tywin served as Hand, the longest tenure in the history of the office. Men said that Tywin Lannister ruled the Seven Kingdoms, and few argued. The king attended to his pleasures while his Hand attended to everything else. The relationship between Aerys and Tywin was complex, tangled with jealousy and resentment even in the early years. They had been friends once, or something close to it, companions in youth who had fought together in the War of the Ninepenny Kings. But friendship curdled as Aerys grew increasingly erratic and Tywin grew increasingly powerful. The king resented living in his Hand's shadow, hearing men praise Tywin's wisdom while dismissing his own contributions. Small slights accumulated into lasting grievances. Aerys began to speak against his Hand, to undermine his decisions, to surround himself with sycophants who fed his paranoia. The madness that would consume the king crept in slowly, a darkness growing in the corners of his mind. Tywin endured it all, his face a mask of stone, serving the realm even as the king he served grew to hate him. There was a woman in Tywin's life who softened the edges of his iron will, if only when they were alone together. Joanna Lannister was his cousin, a woman of legendary beauty and sharp intelligence, and she became his wife after a courtship that surprised those who thought Tywin incapable of tender feelings. Those who knew them said that Joanna was the only person who could make Tywin smile, the only one who could gentle the lion who terrified all others. She had served as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Rhaella before her marriage, moving in the highest circles of the court with grace and wit. When she wed Tywin, she became the Lady of Casterly Rock, and by all accounts, she ruled her household as capably as her husband ruled the Westerlands. Their partnership was the foundation upon which everything else was built. The love between Tywin and Joanna produced twins, a boy and a girl born together as if fate had planned it. Cersei came first, golden-haired and perfect, followed by Jaime, her mirror image in male form. From the moment of their birth, the twins were inseparable, two halves of a single soul that had somehow been divided between two bodies. Tywin looked upon his children and saw the future of his house, heirs who would carry the Lannister name to even greater heights. Joanna doted on them both, raising them with love and discipline in equal measure. The rock echoed with their laughter and their quarrels, with the sounds of childhood that filled the ancient halls with life. For a brief span of years, Casterly Rock knew something like happiness, a golden time that those who lived it would remember forever. There were shadows even in those golden years, clouds that gathered on the horizon of Lannister fortune. King Aerys had always admired Joanna, perhaps too much. At her wedding, he had made comments that crossed the boundary of propriety, speaking of old customs that allowed kings certain liberties with the brides of their vassals. Some whispered that his interest went beyond mere words, that Joanna had left court not by choice but to escape the king's attentions. Others suggested worse things still, rumors too, dangerous to speak aloud, implications that touched upon the parentage of Joanna's children. Whether any of these whispers held truth, none can say with certainty. What is known is that Joanna never returned to court, that the friendship between Tywin and Aerys continued to deteriorate, and that the king's madness deepened with each passing year. The birth of Tyrion Lannister brought joy and tragedy in equal measure, forever changing the family he entered. Joanna died, bringing him into the world, her life slipping away as her youngest son drew his first breath. The child was a dwarf, misshapen and small, with stunted legs and a head too large for his body. Where the twins had been golden perfection, Tyrion seemed a cruel joke, a mockery of the Lannister ideal. Tywin looked upon his newborn son and saw only the wife he had lost, the price that had been paid for this twisted creature. From that moment, he could never bring himself to love Tyrion, could never see past the circumstances of his birth. The boy who had killed his mother, the dwarf who shamed the Golden Lions, became the target of a cold hatred that would shape both their lives. The death of Joanna extinguished something in Tywin Lannister that would never be rekindled. Men who had known him before spoke of the change, how the rare warmth that Joanna had drawn forth vanished entirely, leaving only stone and ice. He threw himself into his duties with even greater intensity, ruling the realm as hand while raising his children according to his exacting standards. The twins were groomed for greatness. Cersei taught that she was destined to be queen, Jaime trained in arms until he became one of the finest swords in Westeros. Tyrion was given education but not affection, maesters and books but never his father's approval. The halls of Casterly Rock grew colder without Joanna's presence, the laughter fading into echoes that mocked what had been lost. Tywin would never marry again, never seek another companion. His heart had been buried with his wife. The relationship between Tywin and King Aerys continued its long deterioration, each year bringing new insults and new grievances. The king refused Tywin's proposal that Prince Rhaegar marry Cersei, dismissing the idea with contemptuous words about servants aspiring above their station. He appointed Jaime to the King's Guard, stealing Tywin's heir under the pretense of honor, ensuring that the boy could never inherit Casterly Rock or continue the family line. When Aerys began burning men alive for imagined treasons, Tywin said nothing publicly, but began to distance himself from the throne he had served so long. Finally, after nearly 2 decades as Hand, Tywin resigned his office and returned to the west. The break was complete. The lion and the dragon would meet again only when the kingdom itself was burning. Robert's rebellion changed everything, sweeping away the Targaryen dynasty in fire and blood. Tywin watched from Casterly Rock as the realm tore itself apart, as Prince Rhaegar fell at the Trident and the rebels marched on King's Landing. He had received ravens from both sides, the king demanding his loyalty, the rebels seeking his support. Tywin answered neither, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. Only when Robert's victory was assured did he move, leading a Lannister army to the capital under pretense of coming to the king's aid. Aerys, mad as he was, opened the gates to his former hand, trusting that old bonds of service would hold. It was the last mistake the Mad King would ever make. The Lannister forces sacked the city, and Aerys died on Jaime's sword, killed by the knight who had sworn to protect him. The sack of King's Landing left stains that would never fully wash away, deeds done in Tywin's name that haunted the family for generations. His men ran wild through the streets, looting and killing, while the Mountain and his soldiers committed atrocities that horrified even hardened warriors. The children of Prince Rhaegar, little Aegon and Rhaenys, were killed in circumstances that remain disputed, their bodies presented to Robert Baratheon as proof of Lannister loyalty. Some say Tywin ordered their deaths explicitly, others that he simply failed to prevent what his men would naturally do. Whatever the truth, Tywin accepted the outcome without visible regret, calculating that dead children could not grow into rivals or rallying points. The throne was secured for Robert, and House Lannister emerged from the war richer and more powerful than before, their sins forgiven in exchange for their support. Cersei Lannister came into the world moments before her twin brother, emerging first as if determined to lead even from birth. She was golden and beautiful from her earliest days, the image of everything a Lannister princess should be. Tywin looked upon his daughter and saw a future queen, a woman who would bring the family's blood onto the Iron Throne itself. Cersei absorbed this expectation like water into sand, growing up with the absolute certainty that she was destined for greatness. She learned to read and write, to manage a household, to smile at men she despised while planning their downfall. From her mother, she learned grace. From her father, she learned that power was the only thing that mattered. The combination would make her one of the most dangerous women in Westeros, a lioness who believed herself the equal of any lion. The bond between Cersei and Jaime transcended the ordinary love between siblings, becoming something that the laws of gods and men forbade. They were two halves of a single whole, or so they believed, identical in all but gender, sharing thoughts and feelings that seemed to pass between them without words. In the innocence of childhood, this closeness seemed merely sweet. As they grew older, it transformed into something else entirely, a passion that could not be spoken of, that had to be hidden from all eyes. Cersei resented that Jaime could train with swords while she was taught to sew, that he would inherit while she would be married away. She wanted to be him, or perhaps to possess him so completely that the distinction ceased to matter. Their secret bound them together with chains stronger than steel. When Cersei was a girl, not yet flowered into womanhood, she visited a woods witch known as Maggie the Frog. This woman, ancient and terrible, was said to possess the gift of prophecy, able to see futures hidden from ordinary sight. Cersei went with companions, driven by the arrogance of youth, demanding to know her fate. Maggie offered her 3 questions, and the answers would shape the rest of her life. The witch told her she would marry a king, though not the prince she expected. She would be queen until another younger and more beautiful would come to cast her down. And her children. Golden shrouds would cover them all, 3 for the king and 3 for her. Cersei left the tent trembling, and the prophecy burrowed into her mind like a worm, coloring everything that followed. The death of her companion that night added darker dimensions to the prophecy's shadow. Melara Heatherspoon had been with Cersei when they visited Maggie, had asked her own questions about her future. The witch's answers had been cruel, suggesting that Melara would die young, that her hopes of marrying Jaime would come to nothing. That same night, Melara fell down a well and drowned. Whether it was accident or something else, only Cersei knows, and she has never spoken of it clearly. The memory haunts her in quiet moments, surfacing in dreams and dark thoughts. Some say that Cersei pushed her friend, eliminating a rival for Jaime's affections. Others suggest that Maggie's prophecy simply fulfilled itself, as prophecies do. Whatever the truth, Cersei learned early that those who stood between her and her desires had a way of meeting unfortunate ends. The plans that Tywin had made for Cersei crumbled when King Aerys rejected the proposed match with Prince Rhaegar. Cersei had dreamed of becoming queen beside the Silver Prince, had imagined their beautiful children and the dynasty they would build. Instead, Aerys dismissed her as unsuitable, mocking Tywin's presumption in suggesting the match. The humiliation burned in Cersei's heart, adding fuel to the resentment she already felt toward a world that treated women as bargaining chips. When the Targaryen dynasty fell and Robert Baratheon claimed the throne, a new opportunity arose. Robert needed a queen, and Tywin offered his daughter. The match was political, cementing the alliance between the new king and the richest lord in Westeros. Cersei went to her wedding with her head held high, determined to claim the crown that had been denied her once before. The marriage between Cersei and Robert Baratheon was doomed from its first night. Robert came to their wedding bed drunk and called her by another woman's name, whispering Lyanna as he took his new wife, Lyanna Stark, the woman Robert had loved and lost. The woman whose supposed abduction had sparked the war that made him king. Cersei realized in that moment that she would never have her husband's heart, that she was merely a substitute for a ghost. Whatever chance they might have had for happiness died in that whispered name. Cersei hardened herself against Robert, gave him her body when duty required but never her affection. She turned instead to the one person who had always loved her completely, who had never seen her as second to anyone. she returned to Jaime, and together they committed the treason that would shake the realm. The children that Cersei bore were not Robert's, though all the world believed them to be. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, golden-haired and beautiful, were the product of Cersei's forbidden union with her twin. She kept the secret fiercely, knowing that discovery would mean death for her and her children. Robert, drunk and uninterested, never looked closely enough to notice that his heirs bore no resemblance to him. He had black hair, as did all the Baratheons for generations uncounted, yet his children were golden Lannisters through and through. Cersei watched them grow with fierce protective love, seeing in them the continuation of her line, the proof that her blood would sit the Iron Throne. She killed for them, schemed for them, would have burned the world for them. They were hers alone, whatever their names might claim. Jaime Lannister had been a golden boy, the pride of his father's heart before Tyrion's birth changed everything. He was tall and strong and handsome, gifted with a sword from an early age, destined to become Lord of Casterly Rock after Tywin. Knights spoke of his natural talent, how he seemed born to the blade, how he moved with a grace that could not be taught. At 15, he was already a legend in the making, having fought beside the legendary Arthur Dane against the Kingswood Brotherhood. Sir Arthur himself knighted the young Lannister on the battlefield, a singular honor that marked Jaime for greatness. The future seemed limitless, a golden road leading to glory and power. Then King Aerys named him to the Kingsguard, and everything changed. The white cloak that should have been his greatest honor became his gilded cage. The appointment to the Kingsguard was a poisoned gift, wrapped in the appearance of honor. Aerys claimed he wished to keep the realm's finest young knight close at hand, but the true purpose was transparent to all who understood court politics. By naming Jaime to the Kingsguard, Aerys stripped Tywin of his heir, ensuring that Casterly Rock would pass to the despised dwarf Tyrion or revert to a cadet branch. The Kingsguard took vows of celibacy, held no lands, fathered no children. Jaime would serve for life, forbidden from all the things that gave lordship meaning. Tywin saw the move for what it was, a deliberate insult, and resigned as hand in protest. Jaime himself had mixed feelings, proud of the white cloak yet aware that he had been used as a weapon against his own father. The honor curdled into resentment as the years passed. The reality of serving in Aerys's Kingsguard bore no resemblance to the songs and stories. Jaime had dreamed of protecting the innocent, of standing with legendary knights against the darkness. Instead, he stood guard while the king burned men alive, while Aerys laughed at the screams of those he had condemned. He protected the king while Aerys forced himself upon Queen Rhaella, listening to her cries through doors he was forbidden to open. The older knights told him that they were sworn to protect the king, not to judge him, that their vows bound them to silence and obedience. Jaime learned to keep his face still while horrors unfolded before him, learned to bury his conscience beneath layers of cynicism and bitter humor. The golden boy began to tarnish, though none could see it beneath the white cloak. The moment that would define Jaime Lannister's life came during the final hours of Robert's rebellion. King Aerys, his madness reaching its peak, had decided that if he could not keep the throne, no one would have it. He had hidden caches of wildfire throughout King's Landing, enough to burn the entire city and everyone within it. His pyromancers stood ready to ignite the flames at his command. Jaime learned of the plan and faced an impossible choice. He could keep his vows and watch 500,000 innocent people burn, or he could break his sacred oath and save them all. He chose to act. He killed the pyromancer first, then found Aerys on the Iron Throne, still screaming his final command to burn them all. Jaime's sword ended the Mad King's reign, and his life in a single stroke. When Ned Stark found Jaime seated on the Iron Throne with Aerys's blood still wet on his blade, he saw only an oath-breaker, a knight without honor who had murdered the king he was sworn to protect. Jaime could have explained, could have told the truth about the wildfire and the madness. Instead, he saw the judgment already written in Stark's cold eyes and decided that explanations were pointless. If men wished to call him Kingslayer, let them. If they wished to believe he had acted from cowardice or ambition, let them believe it. The truth would not change their contempt, so why waste words on it? From that day forward, Jaime wore the name Kingslayer like armor, embracing the villain's role that the world had assigned him. Only he knew the full truth, and he kept it locked away behind mocking smiles and bitter jests. The years that followed saw Jaime settle into his reputation, becoming the cynical, golden-maned knight that all Westeros loved to hate. He served Robert as he had served Aerys, standing guard over a king he did not respect, watching the realm from a position of proximity but not power. His relationship with Cersei continued in secret, snatched moments of passion amid the danger of discovery. He fathered children he could never acknowledge, watched them call another man father, loved them from the distance that duty demanded. When men spoke of honor, he laughed. When they spoke of vows, he thought of all the vows he had broken and all the vows that had broken him. The golden boy who had dreamed of being Arthur Dayne became something darker, something harder, a knight who had long since stopped believing in knighthood. Tyrion Lannister grew up in the shadow of hatred, despised by a father who saw in him only the death of his beloved wife. Where his siblings were golden and beautiful, Tyrion was stunted and misshapen, waddling on legs too short for his body, his face marred by mismatched eyes of green and black. The Meisters said he was lucky to survive infancy, that most babes born as he was did not live to see their first year. Tywin might have preferred that outcome, though he never said so directly. His silence spoke loudly enough. Tyrion was given every material comfort that wealth could provide, tutors and books and chambers befitting his station, but never the one thing he craved. His father's love remained forever beyond reach, a treasure locked behind walls that no amount of cleverness could breach. What Tyrion lacked in physical gifts, he more than compensated for in mind. He devoured books with an insatiable hunger, reading everything the Maesters of Casterly Rock could provide and demanding more. History and philosophy, poetry and politics, languages living and dead, all found their way into his capacious memory. He developed a wit as sharp as any blade, learning to use words as weapons since swords would never serve him. His tongue became legendary, capable of cutting enemies and charming friends with equal facility. Tywin might have valued such intelligence in another son, might have seen it as an asset to House Lannister. In Tyrion, he saw only mockery, a twisted creature using cleverness to compensate for the shame of his existence. The father and son circled each other like wary animals, bound by blood and divided by everything else. In his youth, Tyrion found love, or what he believed to be love, in the most unexpected of places. He and Jaime came upon a young woman being attacked on the road, and while Jaime chased off the assailants, Tyrion comforted the frightened girl. Her name was Tysha, and she was common-born, a crofter's daughter with no wealth or position. But she looked at Tyrion without disgust, spoke to him without mockery, and when he kissed her, she kissed him back. They were wed in secret, a drunken septon performing the ceremony, and for a fortnight, Tyrion knew happiness. He had a wife who loved him for himself, who saw past his twisted body to the man within. It was the purest thing he had ever known, and, like all pure things in his life, it was destined to be destroyed. Tywin learned of the marriage and moved swiftly to end it. He informed Tyrion that Tysha was not a crofter's daughter, but a prostitute, hired by Jaime to give his little brother the experience of being with a woman. The rescue on the road had been staged, the affection purchased, the love a lie from beginning to end. To drive the lesson home, Tywin had his guards use Tysha while Tyrion watched, paying her a silver coin for each man. Then he made Tyrion take his turn, because a Lannister was worth more than silver. The experience shattered something fundamental in Tyrion's soul, teaching him that he could never be truly loved, that anyone who seemed to care for him was merely pretending for profit. He buried the memory deep, but it festered there, a wound that would never heal. Despite everything, Tyrion served his family when called upon, bringing his considerable talents to bear on their behalf. When Joffrey took the throne and the realm descended into the chaos of the War of the Five Kings, Tywin sent Tyrion to King's Landing to serve as hand in his place. It was a thankless task, trying to control a cruel boy king while preparing the city for attack, but Tyrion threw himself into it with unexpected vigor. He forged alliances, strengthened defenses, schemed against enemies within and without. The wildfire that Aerys had hidden beneath the city became a weapon in his hands, turned against the fleet that Stannis Baratheon sent against the capital. At the Battle of the Blackwater, Tyrion's preparations saved the city, his chain and his fire destroying the enemy ships while the defenders held the walls. The battle that saved King's Landing nearly killed the man most responsible for its survival. Tyrion fought on the walls when all seemed lost, leading sorties against the attackers, rallying men who had been ready to flee. In the chaos of combat, someone tried to kill him, a blade opening his face from forehead to chin. He survived, but the wound left him even more disfigured than before, his nose reduced to a rotted hole, his face a ruin of scar tissue. When he woke from fever dreams, he found that his father had arrived with the Tyrells, that the battle had been won, and that all the credit had been given to others. Tywin was named Hand. Tyrion was dismissed to lesser duties, and the histories would remember the Blackwater as a victory for everyone except the dwarf who had made it possible. The fall of Tyrion Lannister came swiftly after his greatest triumph, engineered by enemies who feared his mind and hated his presence. When King Joffrey died at his own wedding, poisoned by wine in plain sight of hundreds of guests, suspicion fell immediately on the uncle he had tormented and humiliated. Cersei, maddened by grief, demanded Tyrion's head, certain that her hated brother had killed her golden son. Tyrion was arrested, thrown into the black cells, and put on trial for a crime he had not committed. He watched as witness after witness testified against him, twisting innocent words into evidence of guilt, transforming kindnesses into proof of malice. The trial was a farce, the verdict determined before the first word was spoken. Yet Tyrion would not go quietly to the executioner's block. The trial by combat that followed would be remembered as one of the most dramatic spectacles in the history of King's Landing. Tyrion, denied the right to fight for himself, found an unlikely champion in Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper of Dorne. Oberyn had reasons of his own for fighting, seeking vengeance for his sister and her children, who had died in the sack of the city years before. He faced Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, a giant of a man who was widely believed to have committed those very murders. The combat was a dance of speed against strength, Oberyn's spear against Gregor's massive sword. The Viper seemed to have won, his poison working, his enemy fallen. Then, in a moment of carelessness, the Mountain seized him. What happened next haunts those who witnessed it still. Oberyn died, and Tyrion was condemned. The night before his scheduled execution, Tyrion Lannister escaped from the black cells beneath the Red Keep. He did not do it alone. Jaime came for him in the darkness, guided by Varys the Spider, whose motives remained as inscrutable as ever. The brothers, who had been divided by lies and resentment, found a moment of reconciliation in those shadowed corridors, though it would not last. Jaime confessed a truth that shattered what remained of Tyrion's heart. Tysha had not been a prostitute after all. She had been exactly what she seemed, a crofter's daughter who had genuinely loved a dwarf lord. The lie had been Tywin's from the beginning, designed to teach his son that he was unworthy of real love. Everything Tyrion had believed about himself, about his capacity to be loved, had been built on a foundation of deliberate cruelty. The revelation about Tysha transformed Tyrion's escape into something darker, a mission of vengeance rather than mere survival. He made his way through secret passages that Varys knew, climbing through the bowels of the Red Keep toward his father's chambers. He found Shae first, the woman he had loved in King's Landing, the woman who had testified against him at trial. She was in his father's bed, wearing the golden chain of hands that Tywin had worn as Hand of the King. Whatever words passed between them ended with Tyrion's hands around her throat. He strangled the woman who had betrayed him, then took up a crossbow and went to find his father. The last Lannister conversation between father and son would be held in the most private of places. Tywin Lannister met his end seated upon the privy, a crossbow bolt in his belly. Tyrion found him there and demanded the truth about Tysha, asked where she had gone after that terrible night. Tywin's answer, dismissive and contemptuous even with a weapon pointed at his heart, sealed his fate. He called Tysha a certain word, a word that reduced her to nothing, that denied she had ever been worthy of consideration. Tyrion pulled the trigger. The bolt struck true, and Tywin's eyes went wide with shock that his despised son had actually done it. A second bolt followed the first, and the great Lion of Lannister, the man who had ruled the Seven Kingdoms in all but name, died in his own filth. The debt had been paid at last, though the cost would echo through generations. The death of Tywin Lannister removed the keystone from the arch of Lannister power, and the structure began to crumble almost immediately. He had held the family together through sheer force of will, commanding obedience from children and vassals alike. Without him, old rivalries and resentments surged to the surface. Cersei, now Queen Regent for young Tommen, attempted to rule as her father had ruled, but she lacked his patience, his calculation, his ability to see beyond immediate gratification. She surrounded herself with sycophants and fools, dismissed capable advisors, and made enemies of those she should have cultivated as allies. The realm that Tywin had stabilized began to fracture, cracks spreading through the foundation he had built. The lions had lost their greatest hunter, and the pride would suffer for it. Tyrion fled across the narrow sea, a fugitive with a price on his head, his family name now a curse rather than a blessing. He fell into despair and drunkenness, spending months in a haze of wine and self-pity. The man who had once matched wits with the finest minds in Westeros could barely summon the will to live. He had killed his father, strangled his lover, and learned that the one pure thing in his life had been real after all. Real and destroyed by Lannister cruelty. In Essos, he drifted from place to place, encountering strange companions and stranger circumstances. His journey would eventually lead him toward Daenerys Targaryen and her dragons, toward a chance at redemption, or perhaps merely a different kind of destruction. The smallest Lannister had become an exile, but his story was far from over. The children of Cersei and Jaime bore the weight of a secret that could destroy them all, though only Joffrey lived long enough to sit the Iron Throne. He was golden-haired and handsome, bearing the Lannister look that should have raised questions in any observant mind. From childhood, Joffrey displayed troubling tendencies, a casual cruelty that found pleasure in the suffering of others. He tortured animals, tormented servants, and showed none of the qualities that might redeem such behavior. Cersei refused to see the darkness in her firstborn, making excuses for his actions, blaming others for provoking him. Robert, distant and uninterested in fatherhood, paid little attention to the boy who bore his name. Joffrey grew up believing himself above all laws and consequences, a prince who would one day be king, answerable to no one. The reign of King Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name, was brief and bloody, a nightmare for all who lived through it. He took the throne after Robert's death immediately, demonstrating that his cruelty had not been childhood excess, but fundamental character. He ordered the execution of Ned Stark despite promising mercy, watched with visible pleasure as the blade fell, and displayed the severed head to Stark's daughter Sansa. He tormented Sansa constantly, having his Kingsguard beat her when news from the war displeased him, stripping her in open court, threatening worse. His decisions on the battlefield proved as disastrous as his conduct at court, his pride leading to defeats that more capable commanders might have avoided. The realm suffered under his rule, and many secretly prayed for deliverance. The wedding of Joffrey to Margaery Tyrell was meant to cement an alliance that would secure the throne for generations. Instead, it became the occasion of his death. During the feast, Joffrey began to choke, his face turning purple as he gasped for breath. The wine had been poisoned, though by whom would remain a matter of debate and accusation. Joffrey died in his mother's arms, clawing at his throat, his final act to point an accusing finger at Tyrion. The golden shroud of Maggie's prophecy had claimed its first victim. Cersei's grief transformed into rage, her certainty that Tyrion was responsible overriding all evidence and reason. She would see her brother condemned for the crime, never knowing or perhaps never caring that the true murderers had acted from their own motives entirely. Myrcella Lannister was everything her brother Joffrey was not, gentle and kind where he was cruel, thoughtful where he was impulsive. She inherited her mother's beauty without the hardness that marred Cersei's soul, and those who knew her spoke of her sweetness and intelligence. When the War of the Five Kings demanded alliances, Myrcella became a piece on the game board, shipped to Dorne to wed Prince Trystane Martell. She went bravely, a child sent far from home to secure a treaty her family needed. In the water gardens of Dorne, she found something approaching happiness, growing to care for her betrothed, adapting to a culture very different from the one she had known. The Lions of the West had sent her as a hostage, but the Sun and Spear of Dorne treated her as a princess. The schemes of others brought violence to Myrcella despite her innocence. Those who wished to provoke war between the Iron Throne and Dorne saw her as a useful target, a way to draw blood that could not be ignored. She was attacked, wounded grievously in ways that changed her forever. The sweet princess who had gone to Dorne with such hope found herself scarred and traumatized, a victim of games she had never chosen to play. Her fate in the days to come remains uncertain in the histories, though the Golden Shroud waits for her as it waited for her brother. The second of Cersei's children, the gentlest of the three, learned that kindness offered no protection in a world ruled by ambition and revenge. Tommen Baratheon came to the throne after Joffrey's death, a boy of 8 years old, suddenly burdened with a crown too heavy for his small head. He was soft and sweet, fond of his cats, eager to please everyone, utterly unsuited for the brutal realities of kingship. Where Joffrey had been cruel, Tommen was kind. Where Joffrey had reveled in power, Tommen seemed almost frightened of it. He stamped his royal seal on whatever documents were placed before him, trusting his mother and his counselors to know what was best. His pets, Sir Pounce, Lady Whiskers, and Boots, received more of his attention than matters of state. The realm had a gentle king at last, but gentleness alone cannot hold a kingdom together when wolves circle at every border. The marriage of Tommen to Margaery Tyrell, widow of his brother and before that widow of Renly Baratheon, was a political necessity that Cersei resented bitterly. She watched the young queen charm her son, drawing Tommen away from his mother's influence, and saw in Margaery the younger, more beautiful queen of the prophecy. Cersei's schemes to destroy Margaery would ultimately rebound upon herself, her machinations exposed, her own sins brought to light. She had armed the faith militant, thinking to use them against her enemies, only to find their judgment turned upon her own conduct. The walk of shame that followed stripped Cersei of more than her clothing, breaking something in her spirit even as it hardened her resolve. The third Golden Shroud draws ever closer, though whose hands will pull it into place remains to be seen. Beyond the main branch of House Lannister, numerous relatives played their parts in the family's fortunes, supporting the lords of Casterly Rock through generations of triumph and tragedy. Chief among these was Kevan Lannister, Tywin's younger brother and most loyal supporter. Kevan lacked his brother's brilliance and his brother's ruthlessness, but he possessed something perhaps more valuable, an absolute dependability that Tywin could always count upon. He served as Tywin's right hand in war and peace, commanding troops, administering justice, managing the countless details that maintaining a great house required. Where Tywin was the mind that conceived strategy, Kevan was often the hand that executed it. He never sought glory for himself, never resented living in his brother's shadow, content to serve the family in whatever capacity was needed. Kevan had married well, wedding Dorna Swift and fathering several children who would carry on the Lannister line. His eldest son, Lancel, had served as King Robert's squire, a position of honor that placed him close to the throne. Lancel was golden-haired and handsome, bearing a striking resemblance to Jaime that would prove both blessing and curse. During Robert's final hunt, it was Lancel who kept the king's wineskin full, ensuring that Robert was too drunk to react when the boar charged. Whether Lancel understood what he was doing, whether Cersei had manipulated him deliberately, remains a matter of interpretation. What is certain is that Lancel fell under Cersei's influence in more ways than one, becoming her lover in Jaime's absence, adding another thread to the web of secrets that would eventually strangle them all. The transformation of Lancel Lannister from courtier to zealot stands as one of the stranger tales of the war years. After being gravely wounded at the Battle of the Blackwater, Lancel underwent a spiritual awakening that horrified his family. He abandoned his wife on their wedding night, gave away his lands and titles, and joined the faith militant as a warrior of the Seven. The Golden Knight became a gaunt, hollow-eyed penitent, his head shaved, his body clothed in rough-spun robes. He confessed his sins publicly, including his affair with the Queen Regent, providing the faith with the evidence they needed to move against Cersei. The house that had always put family first watched as one of their own chose gods over gold, faith over blood. Kevin could only shake his head at what his son had become. The other children of Kevin met varied fates in the chaos of the war. Willem and Martin served as squires and were taken captive during the fighting, hostages whose lives depended on the war's uncertain course. Willem's life was cut short when Rickard Karstark, maddened by grief for his own slain sons, murdered the captive Lannister boy in violation of all the laws of war. Martin survived, though survival in such times was never guaranteed. Kivan's daughter, Janae, remained at home, too young to be married off, too unimportant to figure in the great events that swirled around her family. These secondary Lannisters lived in the shadow of their more famous relatives, their lives shaped by decisions made in Casterly Rock and King's Landing, pawns in games they could not control. Jenna Lannister, the only sister of Tywin and Kevin, had been married off by their father Tytos in one of his many gestures of misplaced generosity. Her husband was Emmon Frey, a second son of Walder Frey, a match so far beneath her station that it was considered an insult to the Lannister name. Even as a child of 7, Jenna had wept and protested, understanding better than her father what such a marriage signified. Tywin, barely 10 years old himself, had confronted Tytos over the match, demanding to know why his sister was being wasted on such an insignificant house. It was the first time anyone had seen the steel in young Tywin, the first hint of the man he would become. Jenna never forgot that her brother had tried to defend her, and she loved him fiercely for it ever after. Despite the shame of her marriage, Jenna Lannister remained a force to be reckoned with throughout her long life. She was sharp-tongued and shrewd, seeing clearly what others tried to hide. Among all the family, she perhaps understood Tywin best, recognizing both his strengths and his fatal blindness regarding his children. She once told Jaime that Tyrion was Tywin's true son, the one who had inherited his father's mind and will, while Jaime himself was merely a great knight. The observation cut deep because it held a truth that Jaime could not deny. Jenna watched the family she loved tear itself apart, watched Cersei's folly and Tyrion's exile, and Jaime's loss of the hand that had defined him. Through it all, she remained a Lannister to her core, proud and fierce despite the Frey name she was forced to bear. After Tywin's death, the realm looked to Kevan Lannister to restore order to the chaos that Cersei's regency had created. He was reluctant at first, unwilling to serve under his niece's erratic rule, but the needs of family and kingdom eventually drew him back. As regent for young Tommen, Kevan began the patient work of repairing the damage Cersei had done. He reached out to alienated allies, sought to resolve conflicts through diplomacy rather than confrontation, tried to rebuild the foundations that Tywin had laid and Cersei had shattered. He was not his brother, would never inspire the same fear or command the same respect, but he was competent and steady, qualities sorely needed in desperate times. The realm began to stabilize under his careful management. The promise of Kevan's regency ended abruptly in blood and darkness. He was murdered in the chambers of Grand Maester Pycelle, killed by crossbow bolt in an echo of his brother's death. The killers revealed themselves as agents of Varys, the spider who had served on the small council for decades while pursuing agendas no one fully understood. Varys explained as Kevin lay dying that he was simply too competent, too capable of healing the wounds that tore at the kingdom. Chaos served Varys's true masters better than peace, and Kevin's steady hand threatened to bring a stability that certain parties did not desire. The last words Kevin heard were explanations of why he had to die, reasons that made perfect sense from a certain twisted perspective. The second brother of House Lannister bled out on cold stone, another lion fallen to the Games of Thrones. Stafford Lannister served his house faithfully, though history would remember him more for his death than for his life. He was a cousin of Tywin, brother to the Lady Joanna, who had been Tywin's beloved wife. This connection gave him a position of trust within the family hierarchy, and when war came, he was given command of a host assembling in the Westerlands. Stafford was not a brilliant commander, not a man whose name would be sung in ballads, but he was reliable and loyal, qualities that Tywin valued. He gathered men at Oxcross, training the green recruits who would reinforce the Lannister armies in the field. The camp was large and growing larger, a respectable force taking shape under his steady, if unremarkable, leadership. What Stafford lacked was the imagination to conceive of threats that seemed impossible. The disaster at Oxcross came without warning, a nightmare that descended from the darkness. Robb Stark, the young wolf, had found a path through the mountains that the Lannisters believed impassable, guided by a knowledge of the terrain that their maps did not possess. His army fell upon the camp at night, when the soldiers were sleeping and the sentries were few. Stafford died in the chaos, caught unaware, his command shattered before it could properly form. Thousands of men who had been training for war never reached the battlefield, their lives ended by northern swords in the darkness. The defeat was a humiliation for House Lannister, proof that their enemies could strike where they were thought to be safe. Stafford's body was recovered and returned to the west for burial, another Lannister claimed by the war. Tywin Lannister emerged from the shadows of war as one of the family's more capable younger members. He was Stafford's son, a knight who had proven himself in battle and earned respect through merit rather than merely name. When his father fell at Oxcross, Tywin did not retreat into grief, but threw himself into the fight with renewed determination. He was given command of forces in the Riverlands, tasked with maintaining Lannister control over territories that resisted their rule. Tywin proved more adaptable than many of his relatives, willing to learn from mistakes, able to adjust tactics when circumstances demanded. He grew a beard after his father's death, refusing to shave until he had avenged the family's honor. The beard became his signature, marking him as a man who remembered and would not forget. The siege of Riverrun fell to Tywin's command after Jaime departed for other duties. It was a difficult assignment, trying to force the surrender of a castle that had never fallen to assault, held by defenders who would rather die than yield. Tywin managed the siege with patience and pragmatism, recognizing that time and starvation would accomplish what direct assault could not. He dealt with the complications of Frey allies who demanded blood, of Tully prisoners whose execution would solve nothing, of a war that had dragged on too long and left everyone exhausted. In Tywin Lannister, the house found a competent soldier for a new generation, someone who might help rebuild what the war had torn apart. whether he would rise to greater prominence or fade into the ranks of minor lords remained to be written. Among the less celebrated members of the extended family was Joy Hill, a bastard daughter of Geryon Lannister. Geryon had been the youngest brother of Tywin, a man of charm and wit who had never quite fit the mold of Lannister seriousness. He had loved laughter and adventure, traveling widely, collecting stories and souvenirs from distant lands. When he sailed east in search of the ancestral Lannister sword Brightroar, lost for centuries in the ruins of Valyria, he never returned. His ship vanished somewhere in the smoking seas, and Geryon passed from the living into legend. But he left behind a daughter, Joy, born of a woman whose name the histories do not record. Tywin, for all his harshness, acknowledged the girl and allowed her to be raised at Casterly Rock. Joy Hill grew up in the shadow of the Great Rock, a bastard among true-born lions, always aware of her lesser status yet never truly mistreated. She was pretty and pleasant, a gentle presence in the great fortress, too unimportant to be seen as a threat by anyone. When the War of the Five Kings ended and alliances needed to be sealed, Joy became a useful piece on the game board. She was betrothed to one of the Frey sons, a match that would help bind the two houses together despite the tensions that simmered between them. For a bastard girl, it was a respectable match, a chance at legitimacy and position. Joy accepted her role with the grace expected of Lannister women, understanding that duty to family trumped personal desires. Her fate remains tied to the uncertain future of House Frey. The Lannisters of Lannisport represented a cadet branch of the Great House, cousins who had established themselves in the city that bore the family name. They lacked the wealth and power of their relatives in Casterly Rock, but they were Lannisters nonetheless, golden-haired and proud, tracing their descent from younger sons who had made their own way in the world. Over generations, they had become merchants and sea captains, guild masters and city officials, pillars of the community that thrived at the base of the Great Rock. When visitors came to Lannisport, they saw Lannister faces everywhere, a reminder that the Lion's influence extended beyond the ruling lord and his immediate kin. The distinction between the Lannisters of Casterly Rock and the Lannisters of Lannisport was significant despite the shared blood. The Rock Lannisters were great lords, powers in the realm, counselors to kings and commanders of armies. The Lannisport Lannisters were wealthy by common standards, but modest compared to their mighty cousins. They did not attend council meetings or command troops in war, did not marry into royal families or shape the fate of kingdoms. Yet they carried the name with pride, maintained the golden hair through careful marriages, and considered themselves part of the greater Lannister story. In times of war, they provided gold and ships and men, contributing what they could to the family's cause. The lions of Lannisport were lesser lions, but lions all the same. The Ironborn had sacked Lannisport before, in the days when Quellon Greyjoy's sons sought to restore the old way and take what they wished from the mainland. The city had burned, ships had been destroyed in harbor, and the Lannisport Lannisters had suffered alongside their neighbors. The raid prompted Tywin to build a fleet capable of challenging Ironborn supremacy at sea, culminating in the victory at Fair Isle that broke Greyjoy power for a generation. The Lannisport branch remembered the flames and the screaming, remembered cousins who had died in the attack, and they supported Tywin's vengeance with fervent enthusiasm. When the Ironborn knelt in defeat, the merchants of Lannisport celebrated with the same satisfaction as the lords in the rock above. Some wounds cut across all distinctions of rank. Throughout the centuries, numerous Lannisters had distinguished themselves in ways that did not involve ruling or warfare. Maesters had emerged from the family, men who set aside their names and claims to serve the Citadel's greater purpose. Septons and septas had devoted themselves to the faith, trading golden lions for the seven-pointed star. Artists and scholars had applied Lannister resources to the pursuit of knowledge and beauty, patronizing works that would endure long after political achievements were forgotten. The family produced more than lords and knights, more than queens and kingslayers. It produced human beings in all their variety, some noble and some flawed, some remembered and many forgotten. The golden hair appeared in cradles across the Westerlands, carrying the blood of Lan into futures he could never have imagined. The wealth of House Lannister had always flowed from the golden veins beneath Casterly Rock, but whispers suggested that the mines were not as bountiful as they once had been. Gold that had seemed inexhaustible for thousands of years had grown harder to find. The richest seams played out, the remaining deposits deeper and more difficult to extract. Whether the Lannister gold had truly run dry, or whether this was merely rumor spread by envious rivals, none could say with certainty. The house maintained its lavish lifestyle, continued to lend gold to the Iron Throne and lesser lords, showed no outward sign of financial strain. Yet, observant visitors noted that certain repairs went unmade, that certain luxuries had been quietly discontinued. The lions still roared, but some wondered whether the roar might soon become an echo. Casterly Rock itself remained one of the wonders of Westeros, a fortress that had never fallen to assault in all the thousands of years since Lan the Clever claimed it. The rock was not merely a castle built upon a hill, but a hill that had become a castle, its chambers and galleries carved from the living stone over countless generations. Visitors described halls that could hold 1,000 men, galleries with windows overlooking the sunset sea, dungeons that descended into darkness where the gold slept in its ancient veins. The main entrance, called the Lion's Mouth, gaped wide enough for 20 riders to enter abreast. Within, the passages wound like the tunnels of some vast ant colony, so numerous that no single person knew them all. Some chambers had been sealed for centuries, their contents forgotten, their purposes lost to time. The lords of Casterly Rock had always been laid to rest within the stone that gave their house its power. Deep beneath the fortress, in chambers lit by torches that burned day and night, the tombs of generations awaited their final occupants. Kings and lords lay in sarcophagi of gold and marble, their likenesses carved in stone, their deeds inscribed on walls that would outlast memory. Tywin Lannister had joined his ancestors in those silent halls, his body returned to the west despite the circumstances of his death. Whether he rested easily, whether the ghosts of the Rains and the Tarbecks and all others he had destroyed troubled his eternal sleep, none could say. The living visited sometimes, paying respects to those who had come before, reminded of their own mortality in those cold and quiet depths. The words of House Lannister, "Hear me roar," spoke of pride and power, of a family that demanded attention and respect. Yet it was the unofficial motto that captured the essence of Lannister identity more completely. A Lannister always pays his debts. The phrase encompassed both the family's strengths and its weaknesses, its virtues and its vices. It spoke of honor in financial dealings, of promises kept and obligations fulfilled. It spoke also of vengeance nursed across generations, of grudges that never died, of the terrible patience that had drowned the Rains in darkness. To accept anything from a Lannister was to enter into a relationship that might bless or curse, depending on how the accounts were balanced. The debt would always be paid one way or another, in gold or in blood. The Golden Lion on Crimson had flown over Westeros for longer than any other sigil save perhaps the direwolf of Stark. It had seen the rise and fall of Targaryen dragons, had witnessed the realm unite and shatter and unite again. Lannisters had served as kings and hands, as knights and maesters, as heroes celebrated in song and villains cursed in whispers. The name carried weight that few others could match, a legacy built over millennia through cunning and courage, through gold and steel, through marriages and murders and all the complicated business of maintaining power across generations. Those who bore the name carried that weight whether they wished to or not, measured always against ancestors who had become legends. The fates of the current generation remained unwritten as the realm continued to struggle through war and chaos. Cersei clung to power in King's Landing, her position precarious, her enemies multiplying. Jaime wandered the Riverlands, seeking something he could not name, perhaps redemption for sins that could never be fully absolved. Tyrion sailed toward an uncertain future in the east, his brilliant mind bent toward purposes yet unrevealed. Young Tommen sat a throne too large for him, and somewhere Myrcella dreamed of a happiness that the Game of Thrones might never allow her to achieve. The lions had been wounded, some mortally, but the pride endured. Whether they would recover their former glory or fade into the twilight of history remained for time to tell. The halls of Casterly Rock had grown quieter in recent years, the great family diminished by war and treachery and the simple passage of time. Where once the corridors had echoed with the footsteps of dozens of golden-haired children, now only a handful remained to carry on the name. The Lannister tree had been pruned savagely, branches cut away that would never grow back. Yet life persisted in those ancient stones, servants going about their duties, maesters keeping their records, guards maintaining their patrols. The rock had endured for thousands of years, had weathered crises that seemed insurmountable, had always found a way to continue. Perhaps it would endure this crisis as well, would find new Lannisters to fill its empty chambers, would roar again when the world thought it silenced. The legacy of House Lannister encompassed more than any single member, any single generation, any single triumph or tragedy. It was the accumulated weight of 8,000 years of history, of kings who had ruled before the Targaryens came, of lords who had shaped the realm in times of peace and war. It was Lann the Clever stealing a castle with nothing but his wits, and Tywin Lannister rebuilding a family's pride through fear and fire. It was Cersei's fierce love for her children, and Jaime's tortured quest for honor, and Tyrion's refusal to be destroyed by the hatred that surrounded him. It was gold flowing from mines that seemed bottomless, and debts that were always paid. The Lannisters were not merely a family but an institution, a force that had helped shape Westeros into what it had become. In the taverns of Lannisport and the great halls of noble houses, singers still performed the Rains of Castamere, and listeners still fell silent at its final notes. The song remained the most effective weapon in the Lannister arsenal, a reminder of what happened to those who defied the Golden Lion. But songs could also preserve other memories, gentler ones, tales of Lannisters who had shown kindness and wisdom, who had built rather than destroyed, who had loved and been loved in return. The family was not solely defined by its monsters, however prominent they loomed in recent memory. For every Tywin, there had been a Joanna, For every Joffrey, there had been a Tommen. The lions were complex creatures, capable of both cruelty and tenderness, and their story contained multitudes. As night fell over Casterly Rock, as it had fallen for thousands upon thousands of nights before, the ancient fortress settled into its nightly rhythms. Torches flickered in corridors carved before the first Targaryen had claimed a dragon. Waves crashed against the cliffs far below, the same eternal music that had accompanied Lannister dreams since Lan himself had first slept within these walls. The ghosts of generations past seemed to stir in the darkness. Kings and queens, warriors and scholars, the great and the forgotten. All of them Lannisters, all of them part of a story that continued to unfold. And somewhere in the depths, where gold still gleamed in veins that human hands had never touched, the rock itself kept its secrets, patient as stone, waiting for whatever the future might bring to the lions who called it home. The story of House Lannister is not finished, may never truly be finished so long as the name endures and the blood runs true. There will be more Lannisters after the current crisis passes, more golden heads bent over cradles in Casterly Rock and Lannisport, and wherever else the family has taken root. They will inherit the legacy of all who came before, the glory and the shame, the wealth and the debts, the pride that lifts and the pride that destroys. They will add their own chapters to a book that began before recorded history, and may continue until the end of time itself. The lion still roars, wounded perhaps but not defeated, and those who count the house among the fallen may yet learn that Lannisters are harder to kill than they appear. For now, the rock stands as it has always stood, and the golden lion watches over the western shore, its eyes fixed on horizons that stretch beyond what any mortal can perceive, patient and proud and eternal as the stone from which it was born.